What did you expect me to do? Sit around and wait for you to tell me the truth? Mark's voice was calm, almost too calm. I needed to know how long you were planning to keep lying to my face. Before I tell you what happened here, please subscribe to our channel and click on the notifications bell so you never miss out on our new stories. Mark and Emily had been married for 20 years. They met in their late 20s, both working for the same advertising agency. Mark was a hard-working, quiet guy, the type of person who did his job without much fuss. He never sought the limelight, which is probably what attracted Emily in the first place. She was the opposite. Outgoing, charming, and always at the center of attention. Opposites attract, as they say. They had built a comfortable life together. Mark climbed the ladder in his company, while Emily transitioned from her marketing job into freelance consulting, giving her the flexibility she always wanted. They bought a nice suburban home, traveled occasionally, and hosted parties with friends. But as time went on, their relationship grew more routine than romantic. By the time they reached their 40s, things weren't the same. Mark noticed that Emily had become distant. She spent more and more time out with her friends or attending networking events. At first, Mark chalked it up to midlife changes or her needing space, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. One evening, Mark decided to confront her. Emily was getting ready to head out for yet another late dinner, this time with some clients. She wore a little more makeup than usual and a dress he didn't recognize. "Where are you going?" Mark asked casually as she applied lipstick in the mirror. "Dinner with a client. It's important. I could land a huge contract if this goes well," Emily replied without looking at him. Mark leaned against the doorway, his arms crossed. "Seems like you've been having a lot of these late meetings lately." Emily paused, her eyes meeting him in the mirror. "What are you getting at, Mark? You know how this business is. You have to schmooze people to get anywhere." "I'm not stupid, Emily," Mark said, his tone harder now. "I'm asking if there's someone else." She turned around, her eyes wide with fake innocence. "Someone else?" "Mark, don't be ridiculous. You're paranoid." But Mark knew he wasn't being paranoid. He had long noticed the subtle changes. The secretive texts, the times she'd smile at her phone and put it away quickly, the new clothes. He had done a bit of digging himself, going through her phone while she was in the shower, checking her laptop when she left it unattended. There were no obvious smoking guns, but his gut told him something was going on. He didn't push it that night, but he decided he needed proof. Over the next few weeks, Mark pretended everything was fine, acting as if he believed her excuses. But behind the scenes, he was planning his move. He hired a private investigator to follow Emily. It didn't take long before the PI returned with photos, clear shots of Emily having dinner with a man, holding hands, laughing in a way Mark hadn't seen her laugh in a long time. The investigator even got photos of them entering a hotel together. That was all the proof Mark needed. Instead of confronting her right away, Mark took a different approach. He wanted to hurt her, to make her feel the betrayal he had been stewing in for weeks, so he started planning his revenge. Mark began subtly distancing himself from Emily. He stopped asking about her day, no longer tried to initiate conversations, and became more focused on his work and hobbies. Emily noticed but didn't seem overly concerned. She was too caught up in her affair and too confident in her ability to keep Mark in the dark. One Friday night, Mark suggested they go out for dinner. It had been a while since they spent any real time together, and Emily was surprised at his sudden interest. "Dinner? Just the two of us?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah, why not?" "It's been a while. We could use a night out," Mark replied, flashing her a smile. Emily agreed, and they went to one of their favorite restaurants downtown. During dinner, Mark was charming and attentive, acting like the loving husband he had been early in their marriage. Emily was relieved. She figured he had moved past his suspicions, and maybe things could go back to the way they were. As they were finishing their meal, Mark leaned back in his chair, casually stirring his drink. "You know, honey, I've been thinking a lot lately. About us. Oh, and what have you been thinking? Emily asked, still in a good mood. I think it's time for a change. We've been in a rut, haven't we? Mark said, watching her reaction closely. Emily nodded cautiously. Yeah, I guess we have. What kind of change are you talking about? Mark smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Maybe it's time for us to stop pretending. Emily's face froze. Pretending? What do you mean? Mark leaned in, his voice low but cold. I know about you and your client, Em. I know everything. Panic flashed across her face, but she quickly recovered, putting on her best performance. Mark, what are you talking about? You're making things up. Don't, he interrupted sharply. I've seen the photos. I know about the hotel, the dinners. You've been screwing around behind my back, and you've been doing a terrible job of hiding it. Emily's expression shifted from fear to anger. You had me followed? You're spying on me now? What did you expect me to do? Sit around and wait for you to tell me the truth? Mark's voice was calm, almost too calm. I needed to know how long you were planning to keep lying to my face. Emily looked down, unable to meet his eyes. It's not what you think, Mark. It's complicated. Save it, Mark said, his tone cutting through her excuses. I don't care about your reasons. You betrayed me, and you didn't even have the decency to end things cleanly. Emily was at a loss for words. She had never seen Mark like this, so cold and calculating. She tried to gauge how bad things were. What happens now? She asked quietly. Mark finished his drink, placing the glass down with a sense of finality. Now, you're going to find out how it feels to be humiliated. The next few weeks were a nightmare for Emily. Mark didn't leave her right away. He let her twist in the wind, pretending that they could work things out. He would act normal one day and then be icy the next. He made subtle comments that left her wondering just how much he knew and how far he was willing to go. She was constantly on edge, waiting anxiously for his next move. Then, one morning, she got a call from one of her close friends. Emily, have you seen the news? Her friend asked, her voice full of concern. What are you talking about? Emily replied, confused. Check the local business section. Emily quickly pulled up the online newspaper. There it was, a headline announcing that Mark's company had been acquired by a major firm. Mark had kept his career moves quiet, but the article detailed how he had negotiated a lucrative deal that would see him walking away with a hefty payout. The kicker? Mark had been planning this for months and hadn't mentioned a word of it to Emily. The article also mentioned something that sent a chill down her spine, a note about his plans to relocate out of state. That evening, Mark came home with a box in his hand. He set it on the kitchen counter and looked at Emily, who was still reeling from what she had read. Mark, what's going on? You're leaving? When were you planning to tell me? She demanded. I'm telling you now, he said coolly. The papers are all set. I'm moving next month. As for the house, I'm selling it. You've got 30 days to find somewhere else to live. What? You're kicking me out? Emily's voice cracked with disbelief. You didn't think you'd get to stay here, did you? Mark replied with a smirk. You're lucky I'm giving you 30 days. I could have had you out by the end of the week. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she realized how completely Mark had outmaneuvered her. How could you do this? We've been married for 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. And you threw it all away for some fling. I spent those years being loyal, being there for you, building a life together. You spent them looking for something better. Well, now you've got what you wanted. A chance to start fresh. Good luck with that. Mark opened the box and slid a stack of papers toward her. Here's the divorce agreement. I'm being generous, considering the circumstances. You'll get a small settlement, enough to cover a new place and some savings. Sign it, and we're done. Emily looked at the papers, her hands trembling. You've been planning this all along. Of course I have, Mark said, his tone matter of fact. You wanted to play games, so I played smarter. You see, I didn't just want to leave you. I wanted to make sure you felt what I felt. Betrayed, blindsided, humiliated. I think I've done that. The reality of her situation hit Emily hard. She had lost everything: her home, her stability, her husband's respect, and it was all her fault. She signed the papers with shaking hands, unable to look Mark in the eye. "Good," Mark said, taking the signed documents. "You'll get your copy in a few days. After that, you're on your own." Mark didn't look back as he walked out the door, leaving Emily to face the wreckage of her life. For her, it was a bitter lesson in the consequences of greed and betrayal. For Mark, it was the closure he needed to move on stronger, wiser, and with his dignity intact. What do you guys think? Did Emily deserve what she got? Or did Mark take it too far? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends.